is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Rose of Love blanket. This is a free pattern that you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description. There you will find both right and left-handed video tutorials, as well as the link to the written pattern, which you will definitely want to reference for this one. To make the Rose of Love blanket, you need Red Heart Soft and a US J hook. I used 4 colors, and that's what I recommend for this pattern, and I have my colors listed in the pattern as well, but of course you can use whichever colors you like. You'll also need a pair of scissors, as well as a yarn needle and some stitch markers. Now let's take a look at the finished blanket together. The Rose of Love blanket begins with row 1, which is the row of purple that you see right here, a simple row of double crochet. Then row 2, we've got the gray with some post stitches, and then row 3, we go to the white. Then we do a row of these puff hearts, which I'll be demonstrating here. Then another 2 rows of white before we go back to the gray, purple, gray, and we've got our repeat right there. So that first row is not part of the repeat, it's just sort of a setup row. And then the repeat goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. And again, I'll be demonstrating all of these for you here in just a moment. I just wanted to walk you through it. After you're done making your blanket, there are 2 rounds of edging. I did the first round of simple single crochet in my purple, and then I did another round of twisted single crochet in my white. Again, you can pick your own colors. And I just want to show you, this is the right side of the blanket with the pretty hearts. On the back side, this is what it looks like, a little different. So it definitely has a right side and a wrong side. Additionally, this blanket can be made in any size. And I just wanted to show you, if you print out the pattern, again, at the link in the description, you will find this. If you are watching on Roku or something where you can't see the description, you can go to mooglyblog.com and use the search bar to look for the Rose of Love blanket. So, as I was saying, when you get the written pattern, there are all the sizes listed out, and you'll need to refer to this chart to see what size you want to make, and that will tell you how many stitches you'll begin with for the first row and how many rows you will have total. It will also tell you exactly how many yards of yarn you'll need and how much of each of your colors, depending on which colors you choose. I personally made the baby size, but of course they're all going to basically look the same. It's just going to be a matter of how big, how many stitches wide, and how many rows long. Additionally, on the instructions then, there are all the special stitches listed out that I'll be demonstrating for you here. And oh, before I forget, the sizes I've listed are not the size that you need, there's also the stitch multiple for custom sizing, which is a multiple of 6 plus 5. That means any multiple of 6 stitches for the first row, and then 5 more. I also have the row multiple. I talked about how it's a repeat of 7, so it would be a repeat of 7 plus 1, that very first row that first sets us up. If you continue on through the written instructions, of course, then, it's a very simple set of instructions. I haven't listed any stitch counts or the final row count because that is the information that you will find on your size chart. And then, of course, there are instructions for the edging. Let's go ahead and demo those together here now. All right, so row 1 is our color A row, and it begins with foundation double crochet. I do have a separate tutorial on how to make foundation double crochet linked at the link in the description, as well as in the written pattern. If you aren't familiar with foundation double crochet, or you prefer to use a different stitch for your first row, you can just use a long chain and then double crochet across, as long as you end up with the same number of double crochets in your first row as listed as foundation double crochets, you'll be fine. So for example, if you were making a size that called for 200 foundation double crochets, you could chain 22, skip the first 2 stitches, and then double crochet in each remaining chain, or you could skip the first 3 and count that as your first stitch, whichever you prefer. Again, you'll want to check the written pattern to see how many of these stitches you'll want to make. I'm just going to make a little sample size here, so I'm going to be working from our custom stitch multiple, which again is a multiple of 6 plus 5. So however you want to make your first row, it's just a row of double crochets. Again, refer to your chart, and I will see you when I'm ready to begin demonstrating row 2. So here I've made my abbreviated row 1. It's a multiple of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So with that, I have finished row 1. So I need to break my yarn, which just means go ahead and cut it. You don't want to actually try and rip apart Red Heart Soft. I think that would hurt your hands. It's a very strong yarn. Make sure you leave enough length to weave in your end. And with that, you can go ahead and secure it and turn to come back for row 2, where we'll be using color B. All right, so here I've got my color B and I'm ready to begin row 2. Row 2 begins with a standing double crochet. Again, this is a separate tutorial that I do have linked, but I'll demonstrate it here for you relatively quickly. I'm going to hold the end of the yarn in the fingers of my hook hand that I'm not using to hold the hook, yarn over twice, go into the very first stitch of the row, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now I'm just going to continue holding on to that end while I make my next stitch. The next set of instructions say double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So I'll make the first one here. And with that, I can let go of that end. What I like to do though is take a stitch marker and secure that loop as well as this end, as those will be the 2 loops that we work under when we come back and work into that stitch. Here we are. I will just slip my stitch marker right under that loop and under my end, and I will know that's where I come back and work the last stitch when I work back across this row. All right, so I get my hook back in my loop here, and I can make the rest of those double crochets. You'll remember we started with a standing double crochet in the first stitch, followed by 4 double crochets. If you don't like the standing double crochet or don't want to make it, you can substitute by joining and chaining 3 or whatever double crochet start that you like to do for your double crochet rows. So we've got those stitches made, and next we're going to back post treble crochet around the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over twice, then I'm going to come behind my work with my hook and go around the post of the stitch with my hook, yarn over, pull the loop back around and up a little bit, kind of wiggle it up there so it's easy to work through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. And that's our back post treble. Then we double crochet in the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that right there was our repeat, beginning with the back post treble and double crochet in the next 5 stitches. That's the set of 6 stitches, that we would repeat all the way on across to the end of our row then. And I want to point out, when we back post double crochet around that stitch is considered worked into. We're not going to come back and double crochet in the top of it. So let's begin that repeat one more time for our tiny little guy here. Of course, you would repeat that till you got to the end of your row. Back post treble crochet, we yarn over twice, go around the post from behind our work, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then just double crochet in the next 5 stitches. For us, on our little swatch here, it will be the last 5. So there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we are. Then we can simply get our scissors again, and it's time to break color B. And then we can turn and come back with color C. All right, now that we've finished row 2, we've officially begun our first row repeat. Remember that our row repeats will run from row 2 through row 8. So let's begin row 3. I'm going to start the same way I did for row 2 with a standing double crochet in the very first stitch. There we are. Then I am going to double crochet in the next stitch. And then at this point, I like to go ahead and put that stitch marker in again. So I usually have a stitch marker going at each end of the pattern, one for the first stitch of that row and one waiting for me at the first stitch of the previous row. So I know that's where I'm going to end, and that way I won't miss a stitch. Get that back on my hook there. There we are. Then I'm going to yarn over, and in the next stitch I make a half double crochet, followed by 2 more double crochets, 1, then 2, And then I have a front post treble crochet. So to do that, I'm going to yarn over twice, and then I'm going to go around the post of that back post treble we made. But this time I'm going to do it from the front of our work. From the back, for the back post treble, we came from behind. For the front post treble, the difference is that we come from the front. So we just go right between those stitches and around that post, pull our loop up there in front, yarn over, pull through 2. Oops, caught the yarn a little bit. There we go. Pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. There we go. And of course, again, that front post treble began the repeat that will take us across this row. We double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, half double crochet in the next stitch, double crochet in the next 2, 1, 2, and that's our repeat right there, those 6 stitches again. Now, if I'm making those stitches a little too quick for you, feel free to use the gear icon on YouTube to slow the video down, or if needed, speed it up. Let's make that repeat one more time together to finish our row. Yarn over twice, go around the stitch from the front here, pull up our loop, pull through 2 3 times to finish it off. You'll notice I kind of keep my thumb and finger gripping the stitch as I work it up. I find this keeps those loops from stretching out too much and getting wobbly. So a little tip for you there too. Then we double crochet in the next 2. 1, 2. Then we half double crochet in the next. There we are. And then double crochet in the last 2. And that will finish our row 3 repeat. Just make sure you go under both of those loops. That's including that tail end there. You can see, got my hook under both loops. I finish the stitch there, and that will hold that end then really nicely until we get it woven in. So at the end of row 3, we are not going to cut our yarn, but we are going to do something a little different. We're going to pull up our loop and get another stitch marker out here. And I'm going to put a stitch marker right in the active loop. And this is just to help keep it open, because I'm going to come in and work with another yarn and then come back to this loop later. And this way, as I work and make the next row, it won't accidentally pull any stitches out. So that's just a securing stitch marker right there. For row 4, I'm going to come in with our color D. Now, besides adding the stitch marker there and not cutting our yarn, the other difference at the end of row 3 is that we do not turn. We're going to come back and work the exact same direction across for row 4. So for row 4, I have my fantasy colorway, the multicolor one that I used. So I am going to join this one to the first half double crochet. So that's that 3rd stitch in that we made. And I'm going to go ahead and join this sort of the standard way with a slip stitch here. And then I'm going to pull that down really tight. I always like to do that, just get it nice and secured. And then I'm going to make a chain 2, 1, 2. And then I'm going to puff stitch, let me get centered again here. I'm going to puff stitch directly into that same stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, go into that same stitch, pull up a loop, and I want to pull this up nice and high, about the height of a double crochet. Then I yarn over again, go back into that same stitch, pull up another loop, pull that up nice and high as well. At this point, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on your hook. So we're going to do it one more time. Yarn over, go back in that stitch, and pull up your loop nice and high. Go ahead and use some tension there, it's all right. Then, to finish it off, we yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. And as I do that, I just want to point out, I'll make sure to point it out here at the beginning next time, I angle the hook of my hook down so that it doesn't snag the stitches as I pull through, at least as much as possible. After that, I'm going to go ahead and keep a good grip on it, keep those stitches steady, and make a chain 1. There we go. And then we're going to puff stitch back in that same stitch. So we yarn over, go back in that same stitch again, pull it up nice and high, yarn over, go in that same stitch again, pull it up nice and high. One more time, yarn over, go in that same stitch, pull it up nice and high, and with 7 loops on our hook, we yarn over, go ahead and angle, I'm going to move my hand here so it's easier to see, angle that hook so it's facing down and away from the tops of the stitches or any of the actual yarn that you're pulling through. And you can pull that right on through, like so. And that puff stitch, chain 1 puff stitch, is what's going to make our little hearts. So after that, we simply chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to skip the next 5 stitches. So that's the next 2 double crochets plus that post stitch plus the next 2 double crochets, which brings us to that next half double crochet. So in each half double crochet across, we're going to do the same thing, a puff stitch followed by a chain 1 and a puff stitch. So this time we don't have to join to the stitch. We can just yarn over and go right into that next half double crochet. Pull up our loop nice and high, and I like to kind of squish the loops on my hook closer to each other. Don't let them spread out across the hook again. That's when you start getting really wobbly loops. You just want to keep everything right and together there. Then we yarn over, go back into that same stitch, pull that loop up once more, like so. Then with our 7, we can yarn over and pull through all 7. And if you find that these are difficult, you could definitely substitute with a different type of stitch. If you want to use a bobble stitch or a popcorn stitch, I do have tutorials for all of those on the Moogly channel as well. Some people I know love puffs and some people hate puff stitches. So you could absolutely substitute, with another 3D stitch with a similar effect if you prefer. So I've got my 7 stitches. I will yarn over and pull through here. There we are. And then I am ready for another chain 3. 1, 2, 3. There we are. And this will be my last one because I'm at the end of my row. Of course, you'll have as many as you have sections between post stitches. Don't forget the one on the end. So I explain this in the written pattern, but when you are making this pattern, your stitch count for every row will be the same as it was for your row 1, except for, of course, this heart row, because it's just a little different here. Otherwise, you've got, the same number of stitches in every row as however many stitches you started your pattern with. So there we go. We've got our 7 loops on the hook. So I can finish that one up, make my chain 1, and then go back in for my last puff stitch. It really does pay to take your time with these because they are such a great feature of this blanket. There we go. And of course, as you make more and more, the quicker they get. So I wanted to point out this too here. Here we are on our last puff stitch. So we're just going to go ahead and finish off. But if I just yarn over and pull through, this little knot here is not as secure as I would like it to be. I just like to make sure it's a little more secure. So I'm going to treat this last puff stitch just a little differently. Let me go ahead and undo it here so I can show it from the beginning. I'm going to yarn over and make it just as I did before, right up until I'm ready to pull through those 7 loops. So let me get those 7 loops back on the hook here. There we are. All right, so I've got my 7 loops. And at this point, rather than going ahead and pulling through all 7 like I have been up till now, I'm just going to pull through the first 6. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through those last 2. And then when I cut my yarn and pull that end through, like so, it just feels like a much more secure knot right here. I'm not nearly as worried about this coming out. Of course, I'll still weave in my end when I'm all done, but when you work the next row, it really doesn't look any difference, and it just adds a little extra stability right there for your end of your row 4. So with that, we are ready to begin our row 5 and go back to our color C. All right, so to begin row 5, I'm going to go back here to this active loop that we had put our stitch marker in, and take that stitch marker out of the way and put my hook right back in that loop. There we are, and we're ready to begin row 5. So I want to go ahead and turn. The instructions for that are written at the end of row 4, but I like to get the hook in there first. And then I'm going to make another stitch, the chainless starting double crochet / double crochet 2 together. Some of you may have made my chainless starting double crochet before. If you haven't, I do, again, have a separate tutorial for it. It's a great stitch. And this time I'm going to use it in combination with a double crochet to make a decrease over these first 2 stitches that we made back in row 3. So I've pulled up a loop about the height of a double crochet. With my finger on top of that loop, I am going to yarn over with the loop itself, insert my hook in the first stitch of the row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through these 2, yarn over again, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So that is a chainless starting double crochet double crochet 2 together. If this is beyond your skill level or you just don't like it, you can substitute with a chain 2 and then a double crochet in the next stitch and just count that double crochet as your first stitch. That will basically act the same way. It's just not quite as, it just doesn't quite look as the same way as a double crochet 2 together does. And this one approximates the look of a double crochet 2 together just a little bit better. So there we are. We've got a stitch marker in the top of that stitch, so I know it's the first stitch of the row when I come back the other way. And then I am going to back post single crochet around this first puff stitch. And this is, again, a little bit tricky. I'm going to use my hand to pull and put some tension on this end, like so. Then I'm going to come under that end around the puff stitch, so it's kind of like I'm coming from behind. Go back into that chain 1 space, yarn over, try and pull that loop to the other side. There we are. So it's sort of behind your work there. Then yarn over and pull through both loops to make your single crochet. If this is just giving you fits and you just can't quite get the hang of it, go ahead and just make a single crochet in the chain 1 space and move on from there as the pattern is written. Next, we're going to half double crochet into that chain 1 space. There we are. And then I'm going to back post single crochet around the second puff stitch. This time it's a lot easier because we don't have this fiddly end. We just come from behind right through that chain 1 space, go into that chain 3 space, put your loop up and around like so. And I like to squish it up nice and tight so it's at the top of that puff stitch. That will help it puff it into that heart shape. Then we can yarn over and finish our single crochet like so. So it looks kind of messy from the back. But if I flip it over, kind of give it a little tug here, you can see how it really puffs those puff stitches into that great heart. Now from there, we are going to be working again back into our row 3, but we want to make sure to enclose this chain 3 so that it doesn't show in the finished blanket. So I'm going to yarn over and make a double crochet in the next 2 stitches, enclosing that chain 3. So I'll yarn over, go into the next stitch here from row 3, pull up my loop, and you'll notice that I went around that chain 3 space. I'll yarn over and pull through 2, stop with my 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go into that next stitch, and again, I've got that chain 3 right on top, so it's all enclosed. Pull through 2, and then I can finish my double crochet 2 together by yarning over and pulling through all 3. Then it's time for another back post treble crochet. This time I'm going to be dropping down and going around, whoops, there we go. There we are, our front post treble crochet that we made before. That way it keeps all the cables on one side, on the right side of the blanket. So I'll yarn over. I'm just going to come from behind and come behind that chain 3 too, so that it gets pushed to the back. Go all the way down here, around that post. And it's okay, like I'm doing here, to go ahead and flip your work around if it makes it a little easier to see. Pull that loop up, and then you can just yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. There we are, like so. Then we double crochet 2 together in those next 2 row 3 stitches, again enclosing the chain 3 from row 4. And you can see here when I went in for that last stitch, I just kind of gave that last puff stitch a tug, get it out of the way, so you're just enclosing the chain 3, not the puff stitch itself. There we are. And I will finish off that decrease like so. Then we're ready again for our repeat here. I'm going to go back post single crochet around this puff stitch. Again, just keep it right at the top of the puff stitch there. Make it look its best. There we are. Then half double crochet in the chain 1 space. And then back post single crochet around the second puff stitch. Like so. Then we have this section here where we work into row 3 again. Double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches. Again, make sure you enclose that chain 3 from row 4. There we are. Then back post treble crochet back down around that post stitch in row 3. Really take your time and work those hooks off, or those loops off 2 at a time there. Get a nice good stitch, then we're ready for our second decrease of this section. Like so. And then if you just keep repeating that on across, eventually you'll come to your last puff stitch. And if you have trouble getting in there to make that back post single crochet again, just give it a little tug. Make yourself some space there so you can get your hook in nice. Come back out through that chain 1 space. Pull our loop up and around, up nice and high. Finish that single crochet, then a half double crochet in the chain 1 space. Finally, our last back post single crochet around our last puff stitch here. And again, this one can be a little wobbly. It's kind of a weird one. I kind of try and do my best to wrap it around, but in the end, it's just sort of a weird single crochet, and that's okay too. Then that finishes off how we deal with the hearts. We've got 2 last stitches right here, one there, and then the one with our stitch marker. That's why it's always good to have that stitch marker. It lets you know when you're done. I can make a double crochet 2 together in those last 2 stitches. So there's the first half. Again, make sure you go under both those loops. Second half, and finished. There we are. Now, again, I can go ahead and pull that stitch marker out, and you'll see this pulled up a little bit of a loop there. That's not a problem. I just give it a little tug, like so. There we are, and it tightens right up, and it's ready to be woven in. And then we're ready for row 6. All right, so to continue with row 6, we're going to continue with our color C, which is our white here. And I'm just going to turn, and I'm going to make another chainless starting double crochet. So I have pulled this stitch up to the height of a double crochet, then with my finger securing the loop on top of the hook, I will yarn over with the loop itself, go into that first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So again, if you'd like to take another look at that, there is a separate video tutorial for it here on the Moogly Blog YouTube channel. I do, just like the other stitches, like to use a stitch marker in the top of those. Again, it just makes it easier to find those 2 loops, and it also lets me know for sure when I've come to the end of my row. So with that, we just double crochet in the next 4 stitches, and in this row, we're only working into the stitches made in the previous row. No dropping down anywhere crazy. This is a very, very simple row to make. So let's see here. I've got my chainless starting double crochet, or again, if you wanted to, you could substitute a chain 3. Then I've got 4 double crochets. Then I'm ready for a front post treble around this post stitch right here. And you can do just what I did there. Use your thumb or another finger to help pull that out if it makes it easier. After you yarn over twice, just go right around that post. Pull up your loop, work them off 2 at a time. And then we're ready for 5 more double crochets. And that is our repeat. Very, very simple. Very similar to what we did in row 2, except we didn't have post stitches to work around. We were just working around double crochets. Oops, make sure you don't accidentally work over any extra ends there. There we go. So let's see, I think I've got 1 more of these before my next post stitch. There we are. And again, when we make the post stitches around these stitches, we don't go back and work into those top 2 V's. That's considered worked. So we yarn over twice, go around that post stitch. You'll see you've got that little chain 3 from our 4th color peeking out there. Go ahead and ignore it. No big deal. Make that front post treble, and then you should finish off your repeat here with 5 double crochets in those last 5 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've got our stitch marker in this one, so we know we're in the right spot. That is our 5th stitch. And that is it for row 6. We're finally ready to cut our color C. So I'll go ahead and do that. Try and get the hair out of there. I don't know about you guys, I always manage to get at least 1 hair in a project. There we go. And I will go ahead and finish that off and turn. And with that, we are ready for row 7. Okay, so we're moving along on our repeat. We had that first row, which kind of acts as a setup row, and then rows 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So row 7 is going to be coming back with our color B, which we began our repeat with, and it's going to be the exact same set of instructions. we'll begin with a standing double crochet or join with a slip stitch and chain 3, whichever you prefer. Get a double crochet in that first stitch there somehow. I'm going to go ahead and, oops, grab this stitch marker from down here. We don't need that anymore. I can use that to secure the top of this stitch. And no, I don't need that one anymore either. I just haven't bothered to take it out. There we go. All right. So I've got that back on there. Find my working end of yarn. And then we just double crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Get that end out of our way here. There we are. So I've got those 5 double crochets essentially. The starting one plus 4 more. And then we back post treble crochet around that next post stitch. So you can see there's a nice good space there to go right around it. Pull up our loop and work off our loops 2 at a time. And then of course it's our repeat on across. 5 double crochets and then another post stitch. Finishing up at the very end of the row with a double crochet in each of the last 5 stitches. So I'll go ahead and finish my little swatch here. At the end of row 7, we will break the yarn and secure it just like we did at the end of row 2. And then we can make the final row of our repeat together, row 8. All right, and we're finally ready to finish our 7-row repeat and make row 8 together. And for this, I'm going to bring back color A, the color we started with. I'm going to begin just as I did the last row with a standing double crochet in the first stitch. Again, you can use your own favorite double crochet substitute if preferred. Get my stitch marker in here because this is our row 8 repeat. So you'd repeat this for however many basically sets of stripes you'd want to have for your blanket until you've got the length desired. And then it would be the final row of the blanket before your edging as well. So I am going to double crochet in the next 4 stitches. Now that I've got my double crochet in that first stitch. So that's 4 and 5. There we are. Then I'm going to front post treble crochet around this next post stitch, and that's it. Of course, we'll end up with double crochets in the last 5 stitches of the row, but really it just mirrors what we've been doing before in sort of our plainer rows where it's just double crochets and post stitches. Now, if you wanted to incorporate a 5th color or a 6th color, you would probably want to squeeze it in this stripe section here. So you would have probably fewer heart sections, but you could squeeze in some more colored stripe sections if you desired. When I originally, oops, I skipped that post stitch. I just kept double crocheting across. No big deal. Pull that back out. When I originally designed this pattern, I had planned on including a couple more colored stripes, but I decided I liked this look better, but you could absolutely add more if you wanted to. So I'm at my last 5 stitches here, so I'll just go ahead and double crochet in each of these, and then got my little last bit of what was left over when I finished my blanket here that I'm working off of today. And then when I finish this, we can go over the 2 rounds of our edging together. So I've got my last stitch here, and get that made. There we are. Pull that a little tighter. There we go. And that is it for our repeats. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the rows we repeat over and over again. So you can see how that setup row, that row 1, just sort of mirrors that very last row of the pattern. So after you've made however many repeats you want to make for yours, then it's time to make your edging. And you can absolutely add your own unique edging to this blanket. It would be a great place to personalize it. However, I've included some simple edging instructions that I used. I decided to make the first round of edging with the same color here, my color A. So if you were going to switch colors, you'd want to go ahead and break that yarn before you started round 1 of the edging. In order to keep my stitches on the right side, rather than turning and working back across the first row, I simply turned and started working down the first side. So I do like to do a little chain 1 there, just as a turning chain for height. And then for me, I find that working 2 double crochets, 2 stitches in the side of each double crochet row works out really evenly. So I'm just going to single crochet evenly, as I say, right along the side of the blanket with 2 single crochets yes, 2 single crochets in the side of each double crochet row. Wanted to make sure I said that just right. Then of course, when I get down to the corner, let me make this last one here. You can see too here, I'm working over my ends a little bit here. I don't believe that working over the ends like that secures them permanently, but it is a good first step in weaving them in for sure. So as I was about to say, when I get down to the corner here, when I get down to the first row that I made, I would go ahead and work 2 single crochets in the side of this stitch, then chain 2 to get me around the corner here, and then just single crochet right in the bottom of each of those foundation double crochets. Or if you made standard double crochets into chains, you'll just single crochet right across the chain. Then of course you can chain 2, single crochet evenly up that second side. Let me get my hook out there so I don't get too tangled. Chain 2 again, single crochet right across that very last row you made, and then you can chain 2 and join to that first single crochet you made of your edging. Then I wanted to go ahead and break and use a second color for round 2 of my edging, so I'm going to add a few more stitches here, and then I'll come back and demo round 2 of the edging. Okay, now here you can see I didn't quite get all the way around with my little sample edging here, but essentially it would just be a single crochet all the way around your blanket. For round 2 of the edging, you can join to any stitch of your first round of edging with the color you desire. I used color C. That's what I had a whole bunch of left over on my last skein of that one. And I'm just going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch to any stitch. Then I'll chain 1. Then I'm going to go back into that same stitch and pull up a loop. And this is the twisted single crochet. And again, I do have a separate tutorial for that if you need it. With both loops on the hook though, I am going to spin my hook all the way around. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2. So it's just like a normal single crochet, but you've got that twist in there. Let's do it again together. Go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and you'll notice I want to make sure that loop is up nice and high because it has to fit the twist. Then a yarn over and pull through. Let's do that a couple more times. We go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, spin the hook, yarn over, and pull through. Go to the next stitch, pull up your loop, spin your hook, yarn over, and pull through. And there is what that looks like. The first couple stitches can be a little wobbly, so I always make a few before I show them. And if you give them a little tug, that helps sort of pull them apart too. If you're familiar with it, you'll notice that this looks an awful lot like the reverse single crochet, also known as the crab stitch. But it's a lot easier. You don't actually have to go in reverse to get it, at least in my opinion. If you prefer a reverse single crochet, you can absolutely substitute that to get the same look. As you go on around, anytime you come to a corner chain 2 space, you work a twisted single crochet, chain 2, twisted single crochet right back in that space. So let's take a look at that together on the finished blanket one more time. All right, and here we have the finished blanket again with that great twisted single crochet edging on it. Like I said, you can use any edging you prefer. This is just the one that I thought looked really nice, but there's lots of beautiful edgings out there to choose from. I hope you enjoyed the Rose of Love pattern, and I hope you'll give Red Heart Soft a try. So again, go to the link in the description. There you'll get both right and left-handed video tutorials, as well as a link to the written pattern, and all of the supplies you need. Red Heart Soft, a J-hook, and even my favorite stitch markers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope it helps you make your own blanket. If you did like this video, please give it a like and let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.